Welcome you back to the Patrick Netherton Show right here on 1130 The Tiger. He's Rogers, I'm Patrick. We're pleased to have you with us and had to make a little trip down to Natchitoches this morning. And so while I was here, I thought, you know what, with name, image, and likeness going on and really all of the things that are now in the lap of the compliance officers for the various universities, I thought this is a perfect time to talk to Dustin Eubanks, who is the Associate AD for Compliance at Northwestern State. Not only to talk about just the NIL stuff, which we'll get to, but also just what happens on a daily basis with compliance, because I think there's a lot of mystery that goes around the office. So we welcome in Dustin Eubanks, and let's start, before we get into the NIL stuff, let's start with just your day-to-day job, because I think there is a lot of mystery around it, right? We see a lot of the NCAA, this kid's ineligible for this kid's ineligible for that. And everyone thinks, okay, well, the NCAA is the big bad. But when it comes to institution by institution, you and your brethren are the ones that are sort of responsible for making sure that you're following the rules. So just give me an idea on a day-to-day basis. Are you working, you have 30 cases of things that you're looking at? Are you what do you do on kind of a day-by-day basis?
Everything. So, I mean, eligibility-wise, any student athlete that gets on that field and has to compete, they have to be certified, whether it be academically certified, whether it be, there's paperwork that they have filled out, tons of stuff they had to fill out, things they have to do with our training room as far as getting medical clearance. So we have to make sure that all those boxes are checked. Incoming student athletes, they have to go through the NCAA Eligibility Center, which people our age, I'm not dating you, the clearinghouse, right. There you go. Then returning student athletes progress toward degree. They have to make sure that they're making their grades and progressing toward that ultimate goal of walking across that stage and getting the degree. So
give me an indication of, as you go along, and your LSU has 50 compliance people. You're not a one-man gang, but you're reasonably close to a one-man gang. But just kind of give us an idea, let's say on a daily basis, right? You walk in, you fire up the computer. Is it double checking things? Is it, clearing new students? Is it, are you looking at everyone all the time? Like, kind of what do you do when you sit down in front of your computer? Is it coaches or someone sending you, hey, we think this might be a violation. This happened on the recruiting trail. Like, what all are you dealing with just kind of day by day?
Yeah, so right now we're kind of in that transition, getting out of last year, making sure that everything is closed down and then moving into next year, because right around the corner, the first part of August, we're going to start preseason practice, football, soccer, volleyball. Here they are, right? So what we try to do is prepare for that. We're trying to make sure that the kids have went through the eligibility center. They're doing all those things they're supposed to do to be eligible. We're also making sure that they've done what they're supposed to do with our admissions office, make sure that they got all their documents in, all their transcripts in for those kids that are transferring. The high schools from out of state, make sure they got their transcripts in. Immunization forms, selective service for the guys, all those kind of things. We're trying to head those off the pass. As we get closer to the semester, now we're starting to look at, okay, they've done their stuff. Eligibility-wise for those transfer kids, which we have a bunch this year because of that transfer portal really kicking in for football and baseball and basketball. But we want to make sure that what are they looking at as far as progress toward degree here? Are they in the degree that they need to be in to be eligible? Do they have the necessary hours, to be eligible and stuff? So we basically try to head it off. We try to handle things, look towards the future, but at the same time, there are things that pop up all the time that we can't actually have the vision to know that they're going to occur. And you just got to handle them on a case-by-case basis, whether it be with a coach having a question, the shrouded mystery thing you brought up earlier, NCAA. There's so many rules out there, so many different interpretations that a question is going to occur with a coach, and our coaches are really good with asking those questions before they actually do something. So if those things pop up, we have to try to find the answer immediately for them, get that to them so they can move on and do what they need to do. But, again, it just day to day, we try to look forward, but there's some things that we can't. We just have to handle.
It's interesting because your office is sort of intertwined with several other offices as well, especially you mentioned academics, right? You got to make sure kids are on course to get their degree. That comes from the academic folks, but it also is intertwined with the eligibility and the compliance issue. I'm curious what your interactions are and sort of, how often you're having to talk to the academic folks or how often you're having to talk to another assistant AD, or as you mentioned, your coaches who are dealing with questions. I would imagine your phone or computer probably are moving pretty much nonstop.
Yeah, it's all the time. And I mean, our coaches are really good, again, about asking those questions. They know that they can text or call me at any point in time, or my assistant at any point in time. We'll get them the answers. But as far as academics go, absolutely all the time. Because there's going to be situations that pop up with them that they're not for sure. You know, they're looking at a kid's progress to a degree. They don't know if this class will count. They don't know if the things that are coming in can be counted. They might have questions as well. They might have a question about, you know, a missed term. So where are they at along that progress toward degree ladder, percentage-wise? So communication, and this is a broken record, and you know, they're probably laughing at me if they hear this because I say it all the time. Communication is just so important. Sometimes we drop the ball on it, but you know, we need to stay as much as we can, you know, as far as in that communication realm, because if we don't, that's where the ball gets dropped. So it's all the time. We have to talk all the time to make sure we're successful.
Talking to Dustin Eubanks, Associate AD for Compliance here at Northwestern State. All right, so you brought up the transfer portal, and that obviously has been a big deal the last couple of years. Now they've added the one-time free transfer, so now you can transfer without having to sit out. Two things. Let's first start about the transfer portal. And speaking of shrouded in mystery, the transfer portal is always shrouded in mystery. Is it literally a website that you can just log into and there's a whole list of people that are getting ready to transfer?
That's it. So before this year occurred, there was a transfer portal already. It's been in existence now for a couple of years. This is actually the third year. There were already sports that were able to do the one-time transfer: track and field, softball, soccer, you know, volleyball, all those kind of sports. It really caught wind this year, you know, because of football and basketball and baseball. You know, once that occurred, and you know, with football, you would know you can transfer down a division one time. They would allow that if you wanted to come from an LSU to a Northwestern State. That's your first transfer from a 4 to a 4. They would allow that to happen. But this year, they actually allowed it to go across divisions, and also you could go up if you wanted to, and that would be okay. So it is a website. We give access to our coaches. Other schools give access to their coaches. They can look up and see who is out there. Kids that are wanting to get in the portal, they actually have to come to the compliance office, fill out some sort of information, whatever school, you know, whatever process they have. Ours is just a simple form to intent to transfer. Once they fill that out, a couple of clicks, and they're in that portal, and they're out there for all the world to see and recruit.
So the rule that just passed, where you have the one-time transfer without penalty, without having to sit out, does that make your job easier or does that make your job harder?
It added some more, you know, people to the mix, but I think that since we were already doing it with those other sports, it basically, you know, we were able to work with it without an issue. So I think it's fine. Now, as far as the amount of transfers, there have been more transfers, which again, on the back end, making sure they're eligible, progress toward degree, all those kind of things, that has added a little bit to it. But I think we've done okay with it.
All right, so the big story, obviously, in the last couple of weeks since July 1st has been name, image, and likeness, and we've seen that explode everywhere. And you know, LSU was putting up billboards in Times Square, and they NILSU and all of that stuff. Now, obviously, there's going to be a lot of demand for an LSU athlete, right? Especially the ones like Olivia Dunn, the gymnast, who has 5 million followers on social media. At a school the level of Northwestern State, where your supporters are basically buying the university. It's almost it's kind of like a you know, it's supporting the local team kind of thing. Tell me about at your level, and funny enough, one of the student athletes had just come in to talk about name, image, and likeness because they're starting to work on those deals. Give me an idea of kind of what the interest has been and what this has added to your workload in terms of, okay, now anytime anyone wants to come and try to give a kid some money and have them sponsor us, now this becomes, you know, your office that has to go and clear it. Tell me kind of what that workload has been added to your plate.
Yeah, so it has absolutely been a strange journey because, as you know, a couple of years back, California started that rock rolling, and even before that, let's be honest, the Johnny Manziel stuff that occurred, I think that really put a light on it as far as him signing those autographs and stuff like that. NCAA said you can't do that and receive money. I think that really got the rock rolling, then California broke through, and then all of a sudden other states were hopping on board. So we were getting a lot of different information from a lot of different sources. The NCAA is going to come out with something. No, the states are going to come out with something. federal guys are going to get involved. Here we go. So we had 3 different variables that we were looking at, and ended up coming down on July the 1st. And actually, a couple of months before that, Louisiana was going to get in the mix on those state laws. And I don't know what number it's at now. Is it 16 to 18 states that have that? Those state laws actually trump the NCAA rules that came out on July the 1st. So we're one of those states. We have to follow our state law. As far as the amount of work, I mean, it was a whirlwind. I mean, we were working on a policy the week before this because we were getting information from our state that was coming through our systems office. We were trying to piece those things together to come up with our own policy. We had to come up with our own sanctions. That was not provided by the state nor our systems office, so we had to come up with those kind of things. Basically make that policy our own and fit it to our own needs the best that we could. As soon as July the 1st hit, I don't think anybody was really ready for it because it was just a frenzy. We started getting some emails from kids. We started getting some texts from kids, some phone calls from kids. Not too many, but it was enough to say, you know what, this is going to affect us a lot more than what some people might have thought. You're right. I mean, it did come in as a state law because of LSU. There's no denying that. I think that Lafayette, I've spoken to their person. He believes they're probably going to have 30 to 40 down there. I'm not for sure on those other mid-majors, the Louisiana Techs and Monroes of the world. Right now, we have about 19 kids that are in a software that we're using to track. So the deals, as far as they go, we have seen some bar stools, which we've talked about that before the interview. And then a couple of other kids are just now getting rolling on actual deals, commercials and stuff like that. So, you know, again, 19, it's hard to gauge what we're going to actually go to. I think right out of the gate, with it being a new thing, that, again, witnessing on that July the 1st, there was a lot more than what we thought. Where we go from here over the next year, it's going to be interesting to see, but I honestly don't know. As far as the amount of work, though, it has added some to it. My assistant is really going to be the point person for that. I had to weigh between state law as opposed to NCAA. NCAA, they'll keep them off the field. If there's a rule that's broken, you won't be playing, which can affect the team, obviously. State law with the sanctions and stuff like that, right now, I'm not seeing any kid that's going to be sitting on the sideline if they don't do what they're supposed to do through this process. That's the input and the feedback we've been getting from other schools. I don't think our kids will get to that level as well as far as breaking that state law multiple times, which is what it would probably take. But so I'm going to let my assistant run with it. Obviously, I'll be in support of him and stuff like that. But initially, getting this thing off the ground, it's been something else.
Well, we mentioned one of a student athlete came in here and was working on a deal with a local business and had questions. And so that's the interesting thing, because I had a question for you. Anybody that's listened to the show knows we're trying to find someone to give the Patrick Netherton Show a shout out on social media. You know, an Instagram post, a Twitter post, hey, listen to the Patrick Netherton Show. Don't know if you saw the Michigan State kicker, literally the first day of NIL, comes out with a tweet, says, you need to go listen to the Michigan State podcast, whatever it was called. I've never listened to it, but I'm sure it's great, right? They paid him to do that. So we were kind of trying to look for a shout out, and I was talking to you and saying, okay, I'm not technically a full-time employee at Northwestern. I'm a contractor. Does that change things? Because you know, someone who is employed by the university can't give money to the athletes. But there were some questions like, sponsors, right? Folks that are already have an existing relationship. You know, Whataburger just opened up in Natchitoches. Let's say Whataburger, you know, gives money to the university. They're one of the sponsors. They have signage in the football stadium, whatever. They then could still go and sign an athlete, correct? Like that's one of the, I think the confusing parts is, you know, boosters. Right, folks that already have an existing financial relationship with the university, if their business wants to get a student athlete, that's still allowed, correct?
Yeah, so what the state law says in those kind of situations, if there's an existing contract with the university, if a kid tries to get an NIL that might go contrary to that contract, the university has the option to actually shut those down if they wanted to. Gambling, alcohol, drugs, things like that, things that are considered risque, those kind of activities, the university could shoot those down as well. But they do give the university the right to approve or deny those kind of things. So it's really left up to the university. Same way with using the logo and the uniform, which we talked about before with that kid that came in. Universities have the option. The state law has allowed that to occur. You know, and like you said, some state laws aren't even allowing that. But we have seen multiple kids do it. So we're kind of put in a position where either you sign on and go ahead and go down that road, or you keep your kids from doing it, but yet other people are doing it. So what kind of disadvantage does that put you at? So,
you mentioned there's 19 kids from Northwestern that y'all have contracted a service that helps you with the name, image, and likeness stuff, kind of almost a clearinghouse, so to speak, that we were talking earlier. I'm curious. Tell me some of about the conversations you're having with some of these athletes, because look, these are kids. They would love a little extra spending money. Who wouldn't? Everybody'd like a little extra money in their pocket. Have you seen them by and large due diligence? They're checking in with you, all that kind of stuff. We mentioned the student athlete who was here before. He was asking you questions about, hey, I want to make sure this business can get into the proper places, all of that. By and large, have you had good, constructive conversations with the athletes, and tell me about some of that interaction when you're dealing with these kids who are also in a new place now?
Yeah, so there have been some kids that went ahead and got out there and they used that software that we have to go ahead and get their information in there just in case deals pop up. We have had some communication from kids before they actually started working on things. There have been other kids that started going down that path. They didn't go through us first. Again, with this being so brand new, we've been very lenient on that, because it's not their fault. But once we contact them, or once the coaches contact them, tell them to come in and talk. They've been very diligent with it. They've handled their business. They've got into that software. They've logged on to it and done what they're supposed to do. This afternoon, I have an actual meeting with our entire football team. Some of the things we're going to discuss is obviously the policy and the state law and stuff like that. Some of the things are going to also beware of some of those people that are out there. I mean, it's in the day and age of this world that there might be some people that try to take advantage of kids. Never give out your Social Security number. Never get out your bank account information unless it's to a trusted source. Not even your date of birth. So different things like that. And obviously just continue to remind them, look, if you have any questions about this, let us know. We'll be glad to guide you through it. And unfortunately, don't ask us to give you money because we can't do it, and we can't set up your deals and stuff like that. But make sure that you understand there's a resource here to help you out through this.
Dustin, thank you so much, brother. We've talked about it. It's the wild, wild west right now, but in the next couple of years, everything's going to settle in. People are going to understand how the process works, fingers crossed. And I think we'll see it kind of become second nature, much like a lot of these rules have become. I mean, that's the thing, right? In your office, every new rule is crazy until everyone gets used to it, and then everything settles in.
You're right. I agree with you, and it's the same way with the transfer portal. I mean, there was a huge amount of kids. This has been the biggest year for the transfer portal so far. What happens next year? Things might start calming down then, and hopefully the NIL will be in the same path as that. So.
That was Dustin Eubanks, Associate Athletic Director for Compliance at Northwestern State, giving us